Because I honestly believe that having an auditable standard in government is going to make a significant difference. So that's going to be my tenure as chair of the Government Division, is auditable standard, auditable standard. We're going to see how many government institutions we can get to have an interest in it.
Or how many may ban you from entry.
And how many will ban me from entry. That could happen too. It could be either way. I'm going to talk just briefly about some of the constraints, and because I'm not sure, I think all of you are going to be generally aware of them, but having spent my entire career pretty much in government, I've seen these things personally, and I'm just frustrated with the inhibitions that they make on government. And the top one sort of came up in our earlier discussions about what's wrong with government anyways. But I mean, literally, when you think about it, government has no bottom line. Inefficient government businesses, when I call them businesses, organizations, they don't go broke. They can't go broke. If you look at how government is funded, it's funded out of, like in the state of California, general fund. Every department comes in and says, I get this much of the general fund. I've got this many employees, I get this percent. And there's no way, I mean, if some office in any government entity is totally broken, I mean, nobody's going to know that except probably the people who work there. And it's going to be masked by the fact that, there's a lot of others that, you're in Caltrans, right? So I mean, I'm sure that if I gave you this microphone, you could tell me 3 offices in Caltrans that are totally broken. They're just not doing their job. And not if you want to work there, yeah, okay. But we all depend on roads, right? And your job is the equipment part of the roads, and we all know you've got to have the equipment or you can't get out there and fix the roads and keep them open. So, it's like we're going to fund Caltrans no matter what. How do we get those 3 departments or branches that are broken out of there? We don't have a process for that right now. Another is the same as the first one, except from a different perspective. There's no bottom line, so leadership, and by that I mean elected officials, are free to pile on. And I've seen this. I don't want to talk too much about too many of these because it'll take me a long time. It's interesting to me, but I mean, the things that say in Sacramento is, gee, we could save a lot of money if we could do away with some of these unneeded reports. Probably 10 different departments do pretty significant reports that they send to the legislature, and for the most part, nobody reads them. And there's hundreds and hundreds of staff hours that are spent in all these kind of reports. So this is an example. Why did they ever come about? Usually it's because somebody made a mistake or they had some kind of an interest in whatever. I remember one actually, Caltrans had a report. There was some kind of an abuse with maybe a private contractor or something moving farm laborers, and they asked for Caltrans to do an annual report on transportation of farm laborers. And it was because of something that showed up in the press. They're still in that report to this day, and nobody reads it. And so you get folks come along, new governors come along and say, let's stop doing those reports, and they made a list of them, and then they send it around, and but everybody's afraid that somebody's going to want it someday, so they typically just keep doing it. And I mean, that's how the work of, say, an agency like Caltrans complex every day, because somebody has something that they want them to do, and they say, well, they got so many people over there, they can do that, they can do that, they can do that. And they just add and add and add, and everybody's afraid to stop. Because hey, if you're the Caltrans director and you stop doing that report, and next year some high and mighty legislator says, where's my report? You could get fired over that. So you don't want to stop doing any reports. In essence, government is totally risk averse. So they keep doing what they've always done because they can't get benefited. There's no benefit to them. They don't get cash return for more efficiency. But they could get fired for any omission or risk that they didn't address. So they're very risk averse. There is something people can do. And so they say, well, what? And so, well, we need an auditable standard. And the first and easiest one I'll talk about is certified process management. The second is structural systems management. And the third one is aligned system objectives, goals and objectives, because, you know, and that's the hardest one. That's why I put it third. But that's the most important one, because that's, I mean, if we're trying to define any quality program or problem, we're looking at what is, you know, the problem statement, where you go into a problem statement, you say what's not working that should be working, what's not happening that should be happening, what pain is occurring, how do we measure that? So we're trying to define the, that's what quality is all about. I mean, the whole scientific premise of quality is about that one. It's the hardest one. But the first one's a good step, good first step. Certified Process Management. Government Division has taken the first step by publication of guidelines for public sector process certification. And I'm going to pass those out for you. They're also available on our website. It looks like this. Okay. And the graphic that you're looking at is on the, I think, the second or third page of the handout, so you can look at it with me. But basically what it's saying here is, let's look at three things. Standard process, measurements, process improvement, employee empowerment. And the reason that we started with process is this. We said, you know, all the things that I'm talking about in government, they sort of exist at a high level, involve a lot of people, involve politicians and laws and elections and people coming and going and all this kind of malarkey, really. But if you look at any government leader or the leader of any government office, anywhere, you could go to that person and say, what are your key processes, right? Because all of our work it's either process or project, pretty much. There could be some activities, but I mean, most of the guts of what every organization does is defined by process and project. So every government office everywhere has processes, right? So I mean, it ought to be, I mean, we as people, members of the public, if, like when we started out and said, what's the problem with government? It's not efficient, it's not effective. Why isn't it efficient and effective? Well, lots of reasons, nobody to blame, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, why couldn't we as the public expect that every public sector manager everywhere would have defined their key processes and would be able to produce a flow chart that would define how that process flows and whose everybody's responsibility was, and what the decision points for the advancement of the process from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. And heck, if you could do that, I'll bet you could come up with a measurement, couldn't you? So you'd have a performance standard. But you go talk to your friends and relatives that are government office managers and say, have you defined your key processes? Have you got a flow chart? Is it current? Got any measures based off that flow chart? They're, you know, I think we did one of those once. We had a consultant come in, yeah, we did one. Yeah, I think so. I'll try to look for it. So the expectation, it's easy to do. We could do that. We could say, and basically what this does is, have any of you dealt with process maturity in any of your processes? Like Six Sigma by itself is a process maturity standard. Basically what a process maturity standard says is this, is, you know, 0, the process is not standardized. 5, a flow chart is uniformly used. At an auditable standard, it's linked to metrics and continuous improvement efforts. Go ahead.
As in other words?
Yeah.
Saying it's used as.
Could be used as, yeah.
Instead of that.
You know, we're auditing the process against the process flow chart. So, you know, like the key decision points, like for example, are pretty easily defined. So, you know, we could go in and audit steps or, you know, however we wanted to use it. We could use it as a standard to say, is this process operating according to design? If you have one. But if you don't have one, there's no way to go in and see that. And I can tell you, you know, it's funny in a way and it's sad in a way. Because as a consultant, a lot of times people hire me to be like a business process. They say we want a business process review. And I swear to you, I have gone in so many times and I'll just do a simple process flow chart. They'll say, oh, we didn't know that. You know, and that's pretty much what they wanted, a process flow chart. And they call that business process redesign. And it's crazy, but it's true. public. That's how government operates. There's no bottom line, folks. So if there's no bottom line, it's like if you're assuming that they're operating their processes at the same level of sophistication you are in the private sector, you're wrong. They're not. So in any case, that's what we're saying is, why couldn't we, as members of the public? I mean, you could go to each one of your city council people, you could go to your county supervisors, you could say, you know, hey, Government Division has got this process certification standard, it's online. Why aren't you using it? You know, it'd be easy to use. ASQ can provide all the training they need. You know, if they don't understand process flow charting or metrics, you know, I mean, it's all in the catalog. We're not trying to make money off the stuff. We're just trying to get it to run right. So, I mean, it'd be easy. It'd be a cinch. And you know, frankly, if you could do that, then you could go into any department and say, how many key processes do you have? How many of them are certified, and at what level? You'd all of a sudden, you'd have a process, you'd have a report card on the efficiency and effectiveness of any government department.
Well, and heaven forbid, but since it is a fluid management every 4 years, every 2 years, whatever, God, have a roadmap.
You'd have a roadmap. Yeah, you know, it's like, hallelujah. We'd have it done. So, you know, to me, it's like, this is just such an obvious first step that, you know, that's what we're going to be going around and talking to everybody in the country about. Is, you know, this is way long overdue. This should have been done years and years ago. I mean, how new is process management to American industry? Not at all. Yeah, the government doesn't have it. They don't get it. So that's